Good morning, welcome to Morning Outlook. This is Kim speaking on Monday the 5th of November. Okay, bit of news out over the weekend. Firstly, apparently according to the Sunday Times, the Prime Minister, May, UK Prime Minister, has secured private concessions from Brussels that will keep the whole of Britain in the customs union and may make Brexit a bit of a smoother transition. Now, whether that happens or that's agreed or is genuine, we'll see. Generally what we find out is people refute that later on, and the market moves all over the place, so it leaves the pound for sure an uncertain currency. For the euro, well, we'll see how it reacts as well, but it could create some odd moves with the euro. Now, that's pretty much that. Other than that, there was the White House advisor saying there's been no massive movement between Chinese and US trade, and that's probably, as I've said a week or two ago, the fact that the Chinese currency, the renminbi, the yuan, or whatever you wish to call it, has effectively devalued, and the dollar's been extremely strong. So in terms of buying, even with the tariffs on there, it didn't make too much difference. Anyway, moving on. Euro dollar, looking at it from a daily perspective here, still looks bearish. It's still in that downward trend there. It did make a good old day up on Thursday, but Friday gave back half those gains roughly. As I said on Friday, we had the higher low. It looked positive, but we've seen that sort of move roll over now, and it looks like whether that might have just been a little ABC correction, we'll see. I am looking to see if it breaks the lows, these lows here. I'll be much more bearish on it, and I'm not already bearish on it, but more bearish. And I'm just sort of actually I drew this line on a little while earlier. It's broken and closed below that now, but it's pre 8 o'clock. I'm a bit more wary of what may go on here. I'm going to just adjust that now because I can, and we have got an untouched daily pivot above. I mean, we hit the weekly pivot here, and so it's a sort of an important point here. Is if we're going to get through, is it going to bounce from here, run back towards that daily pivot? I'm just looking to see how the market shows its hand a little bit this morning. I'd like to see that pivot out the way. If I was going to short, I would still like to see that pivot hit first. So it's a case of a bit of patience this morning. But if it starts breaking up beyond that level, well, it could be heading back towards the sort of R1 territory, maybe Friday's highs. We'll see. But at the moment, as I say, a bit indecisive, and it may be what we see through these markets. For the pound, a similar picture in terms of the big move up on Thursday. Friday saw a partial sell-off, a little bearish bar there, shooting star. We've seen an attempt of another movement here, and it's just consolidated. The news over the weekend, yes, it probably gapped up a little bit from that news, but it's because of just the nature of traders know we've got to wait for the real news to come out and not a newspaper to be telling us something. There's a sort of a patience move. We do have the weekly pivot below, which could draw price down. These moves aren't looking for these sort of moves that we saw late middling last week, aren't looking like they may hold on necessarily yet. We'll see. Bit of inverted head and shoulders potentially, but not a clear price action here. If it starts breaking below that 60.50, I think it would be more of a bearish sweep, but there is that indecisiveness. There is the potential for news to come out and change things. Talking about a currency that keeps getting hit, either say news, either risk on, risk off, is the yen. It's affecting it in an odd way. Well, it makes it loses its correlation at times. It's at the moment it's largely correlated, although we've seen very little movement through the Asian session here. It has put this sort of spike up. It does look like it has the potential to push back up there. From Friday's movement there, and well, when you come down into the 4-hourly movement there, so it's got a double top on the short term with the weekly pivot below. So weekly pivot would be for me good to see out the way. Now whether you play a trade back to that weekly pivot is another matter. I've drawn a trend line on here, and it's sort of looking at well, if it starts breaking that trend line, maybe a bit more confirmation. We have got potential support from the key moving averages, the 50 moving average sitting below it. May just stop it. It's a funny one, a funny old one at times, the yen, as I said, and it may just stall it. without any significant news coming out. Aussie dollar. Aussie dollar, well, weakness into Friday, sold back, shooting doji sort of bar there. It's very little movement through the Asian session so far. It's got the weekly pivot still below, which may yet be a draw. It had moved had cleaner move on last week with the higher lows coming in the earlier part of the week, but it seems to have stalled here. We've broken back beyond that prior low sort of area, and well, as I say, there's an indecisive move, whether that was an exhaustive push up there on Friday, whether we're now sort of seeing a bigger correction. As I say, there's a weekly pivot to the downside if that occurs. Trend lines can be drawn across the lows here to give that sort of movement. I'd prefer to see the daily pivot hit before the weekly, effectively, because if it starts then selling off, it gives a bit more of a target to be had in terms of in the short term, but it could well break through that level. So nothing's really changed fundamentally for the Aussie dollar, yet it had a more significant bounce last week, and I think it's sometime a case of where to put the money. Canadian dollar. Similar picture showing in terms of the movement this morning at the moment, a bit of softening in the Canadian dollar. The monthly pivot still not being hit. It's sitting on its weekly at the moment. A correction here could see a higher low put in, and well, could expect that continuation, what I'm expecting from the bigger picture, which we've talked about in the last couple of weeks. It's on the major scale of things coming back. Well, even looking here, we'll look higher lows running through here, generally higher highs in the bigger picture. Plenty of noise, plenty of indecisive moments, and for a few days at a time, so beware. Okay, that's pretty much it for me. So news wise today, we've got the services PMI out at 9:30 for the UK, and the non-manufacturing at 3 for the US. We've got the Canadian Governor speaker, Bank of Canada Governor speaking at 1:10. Apparently he's actually text of the speaker is due to be released at 1:10, and then he's speaking 15 minutes later. Okay, so there we go, 1:10 to watch out for there. Right, that's it for me. Have a great day. Bye for now.